In this training video, we'll be going over the KORONA Studio. We'll primarily be focusing on the inventory section, which has many integral parts that are essential when trying to familiarize yourself with the KORONA system. Once you've logged into the KORONA Studio, we'll want to navigate over to the left-hand side and select Inventory. Under Inventory is Products, so we'll select that. This will give you a list of all the products that are currently within your system. Let's go ahead and select New in the top left so I can show you how we can create one product in the products list in the KORONA Studio. It automatically should assign you a product number to your new product. We'll want to add the name for this product. I'll just call it Test. Then we'll want to give it a commodity group assignment. This is often referred to as a department or a category in other systems. Next, we have assortment. For this example, I'll just use the general assortment. Most businesses will only use the general assortment. There are some very specific use cases for using more than one assortment. We won't be getting into that in this training, but there are many other reasons to have multiple assortments. Next is sector. Sector is going to be how this is taxed. So for this example, I'm just going to select the tax-free sector, which means this item will not be taxed. And then the next one here that's important that we want to recognize in this general area is going to be tags. So tags are an added descriptor. They're great for organization. They're great for doing specific kinds of promotions, specific kinds of button layouts, or even reporting. One such example is maybe I have a bunch of wine and I have them organized by commodity groups already. Maybe I have a parent commodity group of wine and even a sub-commodity group of the specific type of wine, such as Pinot Grigio or what have you. What if I want to add even more information about this product, such as where it comes from? I could then add a tag such as one called French made wine. This can then be used in all those areas I was talking about before, such as promotions or reporting. It'd be great if I wanted to see how my French made wine is doing in sales. I can pull the report and have it only show items with this tag attached to it. The next area we'll want to talk about is going to be on the right-hand side under additional information. That's going to be these two checkmark boxes here. We have is discountable and changeable. Is discountable is pretty self-explanatory. Is this item ever going to be discounted for any reason, such as a promotion or like a military discount, something like that? If it's checked, it will be able to do so. Next is changeable. So this one is a little interesting. This one would be checked if you want to be able to change the sales price at the point of sale for an individual receipt. One such example may be a product is brought up to the cash register and it's partially damaged, and the customer wants you to give you a slight discount on it. Otherwise, they don't want to purchase it. So, of course, you want to do business with the customer and you want to make a sale. So maybe you want to input the price that you think is fair for the item and then hit change price. This won't be possible if this checkmark box is not checked. Next important section is going to be this track inventory box. Most of your products are probably going to have this checked, as you're likely going to want to track the quantity of the inventory you have on hand. It's going to give you a little notification saying that recommends you create an inventory count to determine the initial stock of this item. If we don't do so, it will automatically think that this product has 0 stock on hand. So we'll want to create an inventory count, which is something we'll be talking about a little bit later, in order to set the initial stock quantity. All right. Last section we'll want to talk about under the additional information here is status. So chances are probably all of your products are going to be set to default status once you're starting out with us. It is important to note this area because if you do have a product that you no longer want to sell, we recommend against deleting those products. We recommend deactivating those products. So that's where our status comes in. So we could set this to deactivated. And the point of sale itself will treat this item as though it's something you just no longer sell anymore. So if you try to scan it, it just say, I don't recognize that product. And we'll be able to still keep the records on the KORONA Studio of all the previous sales of this item, but we'll no longer be able to order it or sell it as it is currently deactivated. Next up, we have our prices. It's going to be the sales price of the item. So I'll just click this one and I could put in my cash price and my credit price and hit confirm. Next up, we also have product codes. So this will be like your barcodes. Add this here, and if I had a scanner attached to my computer, I could scan it, but I'll just input a random code here. Say this is the code that matches up with this product. And then we also, next important section here, and our last section we'll be talking about on the product creation page is going to be the suppliers. So let's add a supplier and show you what that looks like. Select this supplier here. There's some main sections on here that we need to add, such as the order code. The order code would often be like a supplier SKU number if you have it, or if you don't necessarily want to use this section, you don't have to, although you do have to put some sort of placeholder or entry in here. So oftentimes I'll put in a dash or a 1 if I don't plan on using this section. Next up, we have the container amount. This is going to be the amount or increment, I should say, that this item is typically ordered in. So for beers, a lot of times it's going to be 6 packs or 12 packs. So the most common increment that's going to be ordered in, I would put in here. So I'll just put 6 pack or 6. Next is going to be the item price. So this is your purchase price from this supplier. You can either populate this individual item price, or if you know the container price and you don't know the item price, you can just put that in there. So if I charge like $3 for 6 pack, it'll factor out and say, okay, well, that's 50 cents an individual bottle. Now that we've gone over creating a product, let's go over how to order it and how to receive it into the KORONA system. On the left-hand side, we'll select stock orders under the inventory section, and then we'll select new. For this example, we'll use an empty stock order. We'll select the warehouse or store that we wish to receive this to or order this for. We'll select either external or internal. Large majority of the time, you're going to use external. Internal would be if you're trying to do like a stock transfer in between stores, and external is for external sources such as suppliers. We'll type in the supplier we want to use. So I'll use my totally real supplier. Now that we've gone over creating a product, let's go over how to order it and how to receive it in. And then we have our blank order sheet here. We can either scan the products that we wish to add to this order, or we can add them through this add product button. And then we then have the option to select a source. So maybe I have all the specific items that I frequently order with a specific tag, so I can select tag. Or if I wanted to order all items under a specific commodity group from the supplier, I can select commodity group and that specific commodity group I wish to order from, and it would add all the items that this supplier supplies under that commodity group. But for this case, I'll just select product, and we'll add, just do some beef jerky. And we'll just hit add. We then have the option to select a, all right. And then here we can add the quantity that we wish to order. So maybe I just want to order 2 containers. I'll hit enter here. And I have 100 in each container, so it's going to go up to 200. And then if I wanted to add more, I can continue to add more through this add product button. Or if I wanted to come back to this stock order later, I can hit save at the top and then close out this tab and go do some other things and come back to it, and my progress will be saved. Or if I'm done with this and I want to send this to my supplier so that way they can fill this order, I'll hit book. Book in the KORONA system is just another word for finalize. So we'll finalize it through hitting book. I'll load it up. And now I can send this stock order to my supplier. All right. And then here we can add the, this is the email address I have on file for my supplier. I can type in any other additional information here, like please fulfill quickly. Sure. And then we hit send. And then it will send an email with a PDF of this stock order to the supplier we have listed. This is the email. Next up, we have stock receipts. So this will be what we'll use to receive in the stock orders. But there's also circumstances where we'll just want to go straight to stock receipts instead of placing a stock order. So stock orders are put in place for an internal way for you to set up items to be sent over to your suppliers to request items to be brought in. Now, a lot of customers use an external portal with their suppliers because maybe their supplier has an external portal that is handy and that they use in order to send in those orders for the product they want to be brought in. That's totally fine. In those cases, or if you're going to do any of your ordering outside of the point of sale, we recommend using the stock receipts instead of setting up stock order first. So you just go straight to a stock receipt. So let me show you what that looks like. We'll go over to the inventory on the left-hand side and then click stock receipts, of course. And then we can select new. Next up, we have stock receipts. So this will be what we'll use to receive in the stock orders. So if you did create your stock order within the current system, you can transfer the stock order into a stock receipt, and it will have all the items that you added on the stock order and transfer them over to the stock receipt and just transition it over. Now, if you're one of those other circumstances where you sent in a request or an order through an external portal, or maybe you just have your supplier show up and they just ask you what you want on the spot and you kind of just create it from there, those circumstances would require you to do an empty stock receipt. So we'll just click that. We'll then determine the warehouse we're receiving this product into. So we'll do like our Nevada store. We'll keep it external, of course, because it's coming from an external source. We'll click the supplier. So we'll just do my Totally Rio supplier. And then if you want to, you can add a cashier. I'll create this one. All right. So because this is an empty stock receipt, we'll have to add the same. We'll have to add the items that we'd want to receive into the warehouse, and we want to add into our inventory and receive in. So if we did click that stock order option from before, it would populate all these areas with what we're anticipating to come in. So we'll add some of these items here. You can either add them through in this add product button, or hit scan products. Is very similar to how the stock order works in this regard. So if you did create your stock order within the current system, you can transfer the stock order into a stock receipt, and it will have all the items that you added. And then it'll show you the received goods. If this was coming from a stock order, it would show you the expected amount and then the current purchase price. And then we can adjust this here as necessary. We want to increase that to $3. And then as you'll see, if you increase the price or decrease the price, you'll see there's a little icon here on the left-hand side, and it'll tell you how much this increased or decreased depending on what you enter in here. So also, just like the stock order, we'll want to save this if we want to come back later or add something. But if we're completely finished with it, with this data that's in with just the one item, and we just want to add this item into inventory and finalize it, we will just want to hit book. This book is the same thing as finalizing in our system. So I'll book this here. And now it's added a quantity of 1 of this beef jerky into my system at that new purchase price. And then it'll show you the received goods. If this was coming from a stock order, it would show you Now that we've talked about stock orders and stock receipts, let's move on to inventories. So inventories are a way for you to check the accuracy of the quantity on hand located in your warehouse and make any corrections if necessary. So we'll go to inventory on the left-hand side and select inventories to get to our inventory screen. And then to make a new inventory count, we'll select new. At the top here on the description will be the name of the inventory. So we'll just call it test for now. And on the right-hand side will be the store we want to do the inventory count for. These next sections under general are, we're going to leave B for now. They're kind of niche use cases, and most of the time you're not going to touch them. The section you will touch often is going to be this last section here, which is the type of inventory. So there are 4 types of inventories. There's an annual inventory, there's an identify irregularities inventory, an inventory sampling, and a perpetual inventory. The 2 main ones we'll be talking about today are going to be our annual inventory and the inventory sampling. The other 2 we'll touch up on a little bit because they do have their use cases, although you won't use them quite as much. First, we have annual inventory. This is going to be an all-inclusive inventory. It's going to have all of the items that you're currently tracking quantity for. So it's going to have, let's say you have 2,000 items that you carry in your store. It's going to have a list of all those 2,000 items if, of course, you're tracking inventory on all of them as well. Next up, we have identify irregularities. This is great for identifying the items that are held in your warehouse that are currently showing a negative quantity of any amount. So any items in the negative will show up on this list. It will also include any items that haven't moved in the past 3 months or more. So that is also pretty handy. If you did only want to see items that are being tracked in the negative quantity, however, you do have this option in the bottom left here, and you can click that and it will only show the items that are showing that negative amount, because of course you can't have a negative number of items on your store. So you might want to correct those. So that would be a great way to do so. Next is the perpetual inventory. So perpetual inventory is great for people who don't necessarily want to do an annual inventory every year because they find it maybe a little bit overwhelming, and they just want to have automatically generated inventories throughout the year that you kind of piece by piece keep maintenance of and update your inventory. Let me give you a hypothetical here to kind of explain that further. So let's say you have 104 items in your store, for example, and you do inventories every Monday. So we'll unclick all these options and keep Monday. So if I had 104 items and I started this perpetual inventory, what the system would do is it would generate an inventory for me to do every Monday. And based off of the items I have in my store, it will determine how many items need to be on those smaller perpetual inventories. So because I only have 104 items and there's 52 weeks in a year, it will give me 2 items to check on my inventories for every Monday, every week of the year. So because we're checking 2 items for every small inventory, each of the 104 items will be checked at least once throughout the year, which is the goal of the perpetual inventory. Lastly, we have inventory sampling. This is the other big inventory that you're more likely going to spend time with. It is a customizable and flexible inventory. So what I mean by that is when we create this, it is blank. And the reason it's blank is because you determine what you want to be on it. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about that. Let's go ahead and generate one so I can show you. Now that we have this generated, we're going to double click it at the bottom and it will pull up that empty list like I was talking about before. Now that we've talked about stock orders and stock receipts, let's move on to inventories. So inventories are a way for you to check the accuracy of the quantity on hand located in your warehouse and make any corrections if necessary. So we'll go to inventory on the left-hand side and select inventories to get to our inventory screen. And then to make a new inventory count, we'll select new. So now what we can do is we can then add any groups of products that we would like to check the inventory on and ensure the accuracy of. So we can select commodity group, for example, and add all of our items that fall under the beer commodity group. And you can continue to add different groups as well. So if I hit add product, I can also select items under a specific tag or items from a specific supplier. In this case, let's just add one more commodity group. Let's add the sodas. So that's going to add the sodas to our list here. Now we would go and either scan the products to add the quantity on hand for all the ones present here, or we could manually enter in the quantity that we counted. We could do this by either having the laptop present when we're walking up and down the aisles or computer present, or you could also click PDF at the top and print out a physical PDF sheet that you'll be able to reference and write down on, and then come back to the computer and then input the quantity on hand in this actual goods section. Another thing that's handy here is the show nominal goods option. So once we select this, it'll show you the nominal goods, which is the currently tracked quantity on hand for these items. So let's go ahead and add some of these in here. Say we got to a bunch of these items, but not all of them. So let's say I'm not going to be able to get back to this inventory for the rest of the day or even the next several days because maybe I'm super busy, but I still want to be able to lock in my progress and book this, but only for the items that I am showing that I've added an amount for actual goods. So now what we can do is we can then add any groups of products that we would like to check the inventory on and ensure the accuracy of. So we can select book here, and it's going to tell me I can't because there's some missing entries present here. So what we can do is select actions for missing entries. We can select remove product from the inventory, set 0 for actual goods. So that will add a 0 for all the missing entries. So maybe we determined that we have completed the inventory. We've gone up and down the aisles and checked everything and scanned all that's present. And if it has a missing entry, chances are it's because we didn't scan it, and chances are that's because it's not actually there. So we can hit set 0 for actual goods. Or let's say we didn't check all those items that have a missing entry, and we just want to lock in the progress on the items that we did check, which of course are the ones that have a selection or a input in actual goods. So this will take whatever is currently tracked on hand for the items that have the missing entries, and it will just keep it the way that it was before we did the inventory. This is especially useful for certain use cases with like annual inventories. So maybe you do a yearly inventory and perhaps this year you get 90% of the way done with it and you realize it's getting to your busy season. You're not going to have enough time to finish the rest of the annual inventory for this year. So you want to just you want to leave the other 10% untouched, but you want to correct the 90% that you did complete. This would be a great use case for that, as it will allow you to book the inventory and lock in that progress without having to sacrifice all of it over just 10% that you weren't able to complete. So I can select book here, and it's going to tell me I can't because there's some missing entries present here. So what we can do is select actions for missing entries. The last thing we'll be talking about in this video are going to be stock adjustments. Stock adjustments are going to be the last thing that will affect quantity on hand. Of course, you have your stock receipts we talked about before, which will be receiving in stock. The inventories are going to be ways we can check that stock is correct and overwrite the quantity that we have on hand if it's incorrect. And then stock adjustments are going to be some other niche cases where we may want to change quantity on hand. And let's talk about some of those different cases here. So we'll go into inventory on the left-hand side. We'll select stock adjustments and we'll create a new one here. Select a store or warehouse this is going to be affecting. And it will start off as a blank list. The last thing we'll be talking about in this video are going to be stock. We can then add products that are going to be changed. So I'm just going to add one product here. We'll do this 100-gram bar. And we can then determine the reason we're trying to change quantity on hand. There's many different reasons this may occur. Maybe you just did an inventory and you accidentally put an extra 0 in the inventory. So instead of having 100 on hand, you put 1,000. So you may want to do -900 for this item to correct it. And for a reason, you can select other. And then you put inventory misinput by Greg. Greg messed this one up, so we'll say that he did it. We can then book it and we'll remove 900 from quantity on hand. We can also do maybe some other use cases here. So let's say maybe there was theft. So we could do -1, maybe someone stole a candy bar, or some of the other reasons, such as maybe it expired, or there was breakage, someone accidentally dropped on the floor and someone else stepped on it, or personal use. Maybe you allow your employees to have one item a day and they just have to log it here so the quantity is correct in terms of quantity on hand. Or you can even do a transfer in between stores. In terms of the amount listed here, if you were transferring one to another store, you would put -1 if you're transferring that one out. But if you're receiving it in, we would want to put a quantity in the positive, of course, because we're going to want to increase quantity on hand. So that's why that would be positive. But those would be some of the use cases for using a stock adjustment. Thank you for watching this Corona POS Help Center video. For more information, please check the description down below, where you'll find our online manual page, as well as the contact information for our support center, and any other resources that will help you get the most out of your Corona POS system.